So today we welcome back Dr. Ursula Kampmann, who has been a regular guest and welcome guest on our channel. The viewers have been really giving us a lot of positive feedback about Ursula's visits with us. And so we continue and we welcome you back today.
It's always a pleasure being here.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Kampmann, or Ushi, as she's known to her friends, is an experienced numismatics scholar, a curator, award-winning book author, journalist, founder, and owner of Münzenwoche, which is a weekly newsletter that you can get on the internet. You can go to her website. It's also Coins Weekly in English, and so you can subscribe and hear, a good essay every week about what's going on the European continent and abroad, Asia. Ursula has a great perspective on what's going on elsewhere, which is why we love having her on this podcast, because most of us who watch know a lot about the American side of things, but want to know more about the world. So welcome back. And, we'll just jump in. We haven't spoken in a month or two. I mean, I have been traveling here, there, everywhere. A schedule is always front end loaded. We saw each other in Berlin. And then since then, there have been shows from St. Louis to Savannah, Baltimore Whitman Expo last week. And finally, I'm sitting at my desk and it's just incredible to catch my breath and sit down with you. And I want to know where you've been.
Same with us. It has been very busy last week, and we had the most important numismatic collectors coin fair, which was in Munich, the Numismata, where all of European collectors are meeting, and it has been great. It has been a lot of people showing up and good business, and a lot of things are happening right now. A lot of new things. And now I can tell you about a fabulous collection I promised. I will bring few coins and especially medals. And there will be a great new event in Europe I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Well, so which order do you want? You want to talk about the collection? You want to talk about, let's talk really quickly about Numismata in Munich last week. How did that, how well attended was that? And what can you share with us?
It was really nicely attended. And perhaps you know that not the owners, but the organizers have changed 1 year ago. So it was their second year, and they have made a lot of organizational changes. And it has arrived now in the modern world. So Numismata always was great for selling, always great for buying, but it had the charm of the 1970s. A lot of things were not possible, like buying tickets on the internet, or you always had to stand hours in queue to get into the room and things like that. And this has changed now a little bit.
Yeah, listen, I can sympathize because at Whitman Expo, we went through the same thing. We changed our management team that runs the show, and largely first step at moving into the 21st century, I would say, where, people can go online and register. Coin collectors don't love technology. It's interesting. We have this kind of weird balance between, because coin collecting is such a physical, tactile thing that, you don't have to be a computer person to love coin collecting. In fact, that's part of it. But so it's not easy to get everyone to pre-register and do things. And the lines got a little long at Expo to get in for the first time. And then, we have these touch screens, and some people, struggled. And then some people were like, boom, 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 boom. And it doesn't necessarily cut across age groups. My 84-year-old mother is fantastic at the iPad, right? That's because she's using it all day. But it's kind of interesting, and we all have to do it, and it's a little painful for everyone, from the show organizers to the visitors. But you're right, and there's a lot of benefits to getting into the 21st century. How was the show?
With Numismata, you have both choices. And when I have the choice to stand 1 hour in queue or to pre-register, honestly, I'm pre-registering. Even
Right.
So it's a question of waiting, but you still can do it the old-fashioned way if you prefer to.
For
Numismata
now.
was crowded. Every table was sold. It was a full room. All the big European auction houses were there. A lot of smaller dealers were there. Numismata is one of these places where you still can see fresh material lying on tables, and it's always very interesting. And this time we had a lot of new visitors and a lot of families coming in. I was really surprised because that's not normal for European shows.
Okay. Okay. So that's good. Is that because, let's say, gold and silver prices have, inspired, new interest in this hobby, right? We see that also in the United States. Where there's new entrants, there's new people interested. There's a lot of new dealers, people who were maybe hobbyists now becoming dealers. It's a good business, right? If you understand how to convert silver to, everybody and their brother has some collection in their home that they want to sell as silver or gold. So if you're a collector and you say, well, I'll buy that from you and flip it and make $1, you're now a dealer. And so this is the interesting thing. We're bringing a lot of new people into the environment. And Numismata, unlike the Berlin show, as we've talked about, largely a mint event. It's really a showcase for mints. And I would say, to the detriment of collecting, it's not a numismatist collector show. Like, if you collect modern issues, yes, it's really fun. You kind of go around and you see all the different world mints with their new issues, but you're not going to collect Imperial German coins and add to your collection at the Berlin show, right? But Numismata, you would.
Yes, Numismata is exactly the classic coin show where you will find everything from ancient coins to contemporary coins. There are, I think, one mint is there, but it's mainly a numismatic event for people who have been collecting for years. It's a very down-to-earth event, no lectures, no workshops, no peculiar events or something. It's simply go in, look at coins, buy them, go out, and that's it.
Very much like an American show. The most American shows, other than, let's say, the A&A, function largely in that manner. Although at Widman, we added some podcasts during the show and things like that called We Connect. We're trying to bring things in. We had the Mint director, Paul Hollis, came in and did a great interview. So we're all trying to make our shows more interesting, but at the same time, right, these are serious shows for collectors, and that's great. And so I saw online that Numismata is having a show in Berlin again in November. Which is interesting. Is that the same quality of a show that Munich is, or you don't think so?
No, it's not a bad show. It's also a classical show with a lot of dealers, not mints, but it's much smaller than the Munich event. The Munich event in Europe, the Munich event is still the biggest collector event for buying and selling you can get.
Okay, so just to put a button on this whole topic, if you're interested in going to Europe as a numismatic tourist, what is the next coin show on the calendar that you would advise people to visit?
Oh, there are plenty of coin shows. It depends on what you are interested in. There is an event in Maastricht called MIF, which is especially interesting when you are in paper money. There is the Speratel in Prague, which is most important for the Eastern market. And there will be a new event. I'm really looking forward because that's something very spectacular. Munich has in October the biggest event for collectors all over Europe with 50,000 visitors. 50,000. It's dedicated to minerals and fossils and gems and this kind of material. And they add now a numismatic part to it. So I'm looking really forward to that because collectors are collectors. and they have a marvelous connection to the press. They have a huge system of getting interaction with their visitors. They have really good programs for families, for new collectors. It's really a show for the public. And I really think that will be something that will enrich our collectors' universe.
Interesting. You know what? I'm going to try and put that on my calendar. That's first of all, I love being in Europe in October. It happens to be an incredible, the weather is usually really nice in October. You'll probably be, it's probably right after Oktoberfest. I'm sure Munich is not hosting this during Oktoberfest.
No,
So
that would be stupid because when the Oktoberfest is in Munich, so you can forget to get a hotel room. No, it will be at the end of October from 23rd to 25th. And
okay, perfect.
I'm looking forward because this will be a completely new approach to a numismatic show. I'm fond of this. I'm very happy with this new player on the market.
Sounds good. I think it's a great recommendation. And like I said, I'm going to try to get it on my calendar because I usually try to get over there in October anyway. And I don't want to be there during Oktoberfest. Believe me, it's Oktoberfest in Munich all the time. So, and they drag that thing on. It may not have the throngs of people, of the drunken orgy we call Oktoberfest, but afterwards you'll still be able to have a beer. And it's a great city. So all right, I'll see you there in October for sure. And in the meantime, let's move on to, anything else. You were going to spill the beans on this great collection that you were hinting about. Tell us about that.
Now I can tell you what kind of collection it is. It's now public knowledge. I think we've talked a lot of often at this podcast about the time when Germany became an empire, when it united and the first emperor united Germany. This first emperor, who used to be the king of Prussia, was a coin collector. And so it's his personal collection of coins and medals that will be sold in June.
Wow.
And it's a very peculiar feeling when you have all this material that is so directly linked to German history, and you know that this very piece that is offered was handed to the emperor and it was in his collection, and that's something very special. I guess it would be something for you like George Washington having a coin collection, and George Washington's coin collection is up for sale. So please imagine that in Germany for Germans. It's incredible.
Okay, so this is Frederick the First and around 1871 unification
Wilhelm.
and
Wilhelm
right.
I,
Wilhelm the
1871.
First. Mhm.
It's his brother who used to be the king before him. They both collected. And so it's their united collection.
Their united collection, and so the coins are pre-unification coins, or they're imperial coins
Most
from after.
Mostly it's medals because at that time emperors and princes were traveling all over Europe in order to do these diplomatic stuff you needed to do as a ruler. So you attend a wedding or you attend a coronation or this or that. And the Prussian emperors, no, the Prussian kings had very close relations to the Russian court because the sister was the wife of the Russian Tsar, of the Russian emperor. So there is also a lot of Russian material in this auction sale, like one of the best, in my eyes, the best preserved family ruble I ever have seen. It's a lot of incredible things. Or there's a burger pond, one of the biggest rarities from South Africa, because people knew that he was collecting, and so they were sending diplomatic gifts. And he traveled and he received the medals that were struck on the very occasion, because at that point medals were kind of a souvenir given to persons who attended an event. And this means that most of the material is coming directly from the press. It's gold, it's heavy, and it has this provenance, and it's in a fantastic condition. And before you ask me, it will be all graded.
Graded. Okay. Okay. Well, coming full circle to the American style of numismatic commerce at this point. Who is the auction house selling the coins?
It will be Künke.
Junker, of course, of
And all
course.
they have sold in the past a few royal collections or a few royal objects, like they had heritage of the Bulgarian king, who also was of Austrian, French, European descendants. So they have quite an experience in dealing in this kind of stuff that is coming from the old dynasties of the 19th century. So it will be a great auction sale. It will be a great auction catalog. It will be a lot of fun.
And all right, so when, first of all, my questions are, were the coins ever displayed in a museum? Have they been hidden from public view
They
until
were
now?
in a museum, but that was before World War II.
Wow.
So I guess you won't have seen them. It's really material that has been off the market for decades.
Is the consigner, the state of the German government, or who was the consigner of such a thing?
That you will find in the auction catalog.
Okay, more secrets, more secrets. Okay, and when is the sale? If that's not a secret.
It's in June, and I promise you, I will get Ulrich Künke into this podcast, and he will have the most exciting things, and we will have a podcast on this very collection. I promise.
Oh, good. I hope you've asked him. He's a really super nice guy. I love talking with Ulrich, and I love to get to know him and his business better, and how they come about getting this consignment. What a consignment, right? To get that. So congratulations to them. Thank you for giving us the tea on this whole matter, and we'll look forward to, let's get him next. I mean, before he gets too busy. So
Yes,
so
we have to do that fast because June is approaching very fast.
I know. Are they doing it, selling it in conjunction with an event, or are they going to do it in Osnabrück in their offices?
In Osnabrück.
Okay.
No, the auction will be event enough.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I've never been to Osnabrück, so maybe that's another excuse for me to get over there. So I got all kinds of good reasons now. I would,
It's a nice town. It used to be the center of Europe in a certain year when the Peace of Westphalia was made in 1648. So then it was the center of Europe. So you need to go once.
so it's downhill from there over in Osnabrück in 1648 and down. Well, I would look forward. I would love to go. I think it's not too far from Frankfurt, right? I mean, you take a train, you fly into Frankfurt and you take a train north and west, I believe. So okay, good. Everybody, if you're really into European metals and things like that, then that's obviously going to be a piece of history and a lot of fun to be a part of. So before we jump into today's topic is going to be about fakes and forgeries in the ancients collecting world. Ursula's very strong topic. We always kind of get back to ancients and things like that. Is there anything else before we jump into that topic today?
I think we can jump directly into the topic, and I hope you will find it interesting because it's not only ancient, it's a little bit about the past and the present of fakes and counterfeits and how to detect them. I think we should talk about that, and about the different systems we have in Europe and you have in the US for dealing with fakes and for finding out what is genuine and what is fake.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is one of the scariest parts of collecting coins today, most transactions occur online. And then the danger of buying a counterfeit or fake coin is so real. And if you don't know the hobby well, you don't even know necessarily whether the NGC or PCGS slab has been counterfeited. Now, most of those things are obvious to us dealers, but not always. So again, we'll jump into the topic, and and we'll talk about how we look at it from the American side. And I'm looking forward to hearing mostly how it looks on the European side. So, so there's two kinds of forgeries, as you've told me. There's cast forgeries and spark die erosion. I guess new dies that people make to make a coin. Tell me about that.
I think we should first go the very old way, because with the transfer dies, we are in the modern age and we are in a completely different system of detecting them. And with casts and with coins from new dies, you have a good chance, even as a collector, to find out whether it's genuine and fake. And one of my biggest recommendations is that you need to have a very good tool. You need to have, what's the name? It's a lens. It's
Magnifying glass.
magnifying glass. And I found out that the best magnifying glasses are produced for jewelers. So you really need one. You have 10 times or 12 times the magnification. And then you will be able with exactly. And with one of
Mine is
these,
German made.
yeah, honestly, I got mine in New York at the street where all the jewelers are sitting. They are selling the best magnifying glasses I've ever seen. And most of the casts you will be able to detect with these magnifying glasses, because the structure of the surface is completely different. So this is the best thing to check whether something is cast or not. When you have something that is struck with new dies, you always need to check pieces that are from the same emission, and you have to go over the styles. So there used to be a proverb in Europe among auctioneers. I don't know whether you have something similar in the US. There was we used to say that every good collection of ancient coins has 2 or 3 Beckers in it. Becker was a very famous counterfeiter in the 18th century. And his fakes were so good. He cut the dies completely new, but they were so good that you really needed to know the dies he made in order to be able to find out which were made of Becker and which were really authentic. So they have a very peculiar style. They are published. It's not a problem, but you need to be aware of it.
Well, I mean, and there's even, I imagine, a collectible in the counterfeits at this point, which is also, such a, good contemporary counterfeits or things that are made that people just start collecting those as well. But okay, so look, there's obviously no substitute for knowing what the genuine surface is of a coin, what the genuine look and the details. In American coins, we know what they should look like. We know what a Barber quarter should look like, or a Morgan dollar. There's so many now, so many bust dollars and Morgan dollars that are being counterfeited out of, let's say, China, coming over. And every day on the internet is flooded with really bad looking counterfeits probably from China, manufacturer. And we know them immediately, and poor innocent people are duped every day. Now, mostly they're not paying thousands of dollars for something that should be worth thousands of dollars, but they might be paying $100 or $200. And so, just believe me, if it sounds too good to be true, that's really the first rule. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? Just don't get involved if you don't know what you're doing first. So, okay, so you have these different kinds of quality counterfeits.
That's another point I want to stress, that a good counterfeit can't be detected only by a photo. When you can detect a counterfeit by looking at the photo, it's a bad counterfeit. But in order to really detect a good counterfeit, you need to have it in your hand and you need to examine it in a lot of details. What I also wanted to mention, because I think that explains a little bit why in the beginning a lot of European dealers were very careful about graded coins. Here in Europe, the edge is very important in order to check the authenticity of a coin. We used to have a lot of museums who were producing galvanos. And believe me, a galvano that of which two parts have put together can be very convincing as a counterfeit. But you just need to look at the edge. You will be able to find at the edge a very small rim, a very small, tiny line that tells you it's made up of two parts. But when it's in a holder, you can't see it anymore. That
Well,
the
the seam, you're describing the seam of the seam that is created when the two pieces are bonded, and you can always see the seam. Now, the grading companies here have, have revealed the edges better. The new
okay.
slabs show not the complete edge, unfortunately, because that's impossible. But you can finally, that was in response, I think, to a lot of what you're saying. Same in colonial coins, where the edges are really the third dimension of the coin, for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. I think that's very important, where that the edge and especially also damages at the edge are valued in Europe completely different than in the US. When you have something like a scratch on the edge or a nick on the edge, that is reducing the value of a coin to a big part. So I'm not sure whether you have the same system that the edge is so important or.
No, this is a lesson I learned years ago that when I had some German customers early on buying American coins, and we would send them American coins. And it's so interesting, one of those interesting differences between the German collector and the American collector is this obsession with the edge. And not so much the surface quality of the, so the Americans are obsessed with surface quality and marks on the surface as well. So the originality of the surfaces but we I would say we take a back seat to the rims. Now, if a coin has a big rim bruise or rim ding, however we want to say that, the grading services can often not grade that coin. They'll say it has details, rim bruise or something, but not there's definitely not the same obsession that we're discussing as it relates to that the Germans do. But the Germans were also prone to putting a price sticker on the coin at the show, which is something that had all American coin collectors, pulling their hair out. What we have, because we would never put a sticker on the surface of the coin, and
Yeah.
yet you'd go up to the cases and they just got price stickers on the coin. So yeah, everybody, maybe you could arbitrage that value by American coins or German coins in Europe, and that don't, that have rim bruises, and you sell them better in the United States, and vice versa. But it is just a funny thing. And I guess what we're talking about is this 30-year evolution where Europeans are finally accepting third-party grading, that that collector now is not as obsessed with the rim. Has to be, or they wouldn't take the coin in a holder, as you say, or would certainly.
Uh, let's be honest, the majority of collectors still doesn't collect graded coins. We do it now for the really expensive coins, where we expect investors and international interest. But when you have a classical, uh, and I wouldn't say only German, also European auction house, in Italy, it's even worse. In Italy, no, they don't like it. So we have this to society development. There is the society, the international group of investors who are mainly interested in keeping the value of the coin and having it also as an investment, and the large majority who is only interested in collecting and in having it as a testimony to history. They won't have it graded, the investors will have it graded. So there is
Right.
still these two different parts.
Of course, but I think what we're acknowledging, you know, kicking and screaming as you might be, what you're acknowledging is that the market is relenting. The auction market is relenting to the modern buyer who is more likely to spend high dollars because the coins are third party graded and they feel more comfortable with that, selling it, storing it, preservation of value. And it's the same in the U.S. The collectors who are the purists, who love their colonial coins and and tokens and metals, these very specialized collectors who are very knowledgeable, much more historically aware of the source material they're collecting, are, let's call them dinosaurs for lack of a better word. They're shrinking in size, they're getting higher in age. So that stamp collectors are also in sort of the same boat. If you're a stamp collector, a very serious American stamp collector today, you are the kind of guy who wants uncertified coins too. That's who you are. And and you're probably 80 years older or 70s and older. It's just that, and I'm just making observations. I'm not trying to throw stones here, but you're not seeing a 50-year-old, very wealthy coin collector who's interested in the material in the United States and says, I don't want anything graded. I want to feel the edge. I want to touch that coin.
Yeah, that's the difference. And I agree with you that it's changing. It has changed in the States much more than in Europe, but I expect it to change at a certain point also in Europe, because you can observe that a lot of new collectors are coming in. They don't have the knowledge an average collector would have had about 30 years ago. It's simply about education. Look, I had Latin in school. I'm still able to read Latin books. I'm even able to read ancient Greek. So you are laughing because to you it might sound rather peculiar. It was not so.
No, it doesn't sound peculiar. It doesn't sound, I was just thinking, I was like, how is that going for you, Ursula? Reading Ulysses or something in Greek. However, I'm sure, it's just very scholarly and that's right. That's right. Things are changing. And if we want to grow this hobby, like, Numismata or Whitman Expo, anything, what we've learned is that you have to embrace it. You have to get on these podcasts as part of the same evolution of speaking to a new kind of collector. And after I said what I said, I heard in my head, I heard John Kralovich, my buddy, researcher, lover of tokens and metals, and I'm sure we'll try to get to the Kunker auction, screaming at me because his customers do love touching the edge of the coin, and they may be in their 40s and 50s, but he is at the top of that food chain here in the U.S. I mean, that's true, and I'm sure he's going to scream at me. So apologies to John right away and his customers.
I think coin collecting is a very democratic thing. You can do whatever you want. And if you want, you'll have your coins graded. Please buy graded coins. If you want to see the edge, please buy not graded coins. That's the marvelous thing with our market, that we can do and buy what we want.
That's right. And what else I would add is I had one of my favorite wealthy customers when I was at David Lawrence Rare Coins was a gentleman who collected Standing Liberty quarters and Barber quarters, and basically 20th century very expensive coins. Though he was buying MS63, 64 quality coins, full head quarters. The full head Standing Liberty quarter is a premium item over the regular. Some of the coins were $10,000-$15,000, and he would take all of them out of the holders. After he wanted to buy them in the holder, but he would take them out and put them in his beautiful capital plastic. The slabbing, on top of the things that we've talked about, the slabbing depersonalizes the items because now, they're kind of organized in a box, and you can lay them on a table. But let's face it, it's not the same as looking at your album and your folder or your capital holder. And the irony was, and I think this is a good thing, I'm bringing this up for this reason, is that you could buy these things in the holders. It's giving you confidence. You can have that seller remove it for you. He will, that he or she will say, caveat emptor at this point, right? You take it out of the holder, you can no longer, it turns out that was counterfeit. You will no longer have the guarantee of the grading company. However, take it out. And when this customer resold his collection of standing quarters and barber quarters, he did just fine, because we regraded them. They all did, they all graded well. We were fussy. We didn't just buy anything. We had I luckily gave him good advice about what to buy, what not to buy. And the coins all graded the same or higher, with very few exceptions, that he did just fine. So you can do this. You can buy the coins and holders. If you hate the holders, you take it out, and you can enjoy them any way you wish. But I do believe that the holder adds one more layer of expertise, if not a very strong layer of expertise, to the item.
I had a very a key experience with that when I was for the first time attending Hong Kong, and went to one of these warehouses where you have all the coin dealers together under one roof. And I saw all these tiny shops with all this kind of materials. And I thought, okay, if I had to buy my coins here, I also would buy it in a holder, because it adds security at a space where you need additional security. When you buy at one of the normal European dealers, you have the security that the European dealer is guaranteeing the authenticity of the coin as long as his company exists. So
and you want to, let me emphasize quickly that not every dealer is the same. Some dealers in the United States, I can speak to, have existed since yesterday. They're a day old. They just went on eBay and now they're a dealer. You don't know the difference between that dealer and the dealer who's been around since 1950. So there are accreditations to those dealers that you want to look for. In the United States, you want to look for a PNG member. You certainly want them to be an ANA member, preferably a life member of the ANA. I've been a life member since I was about 9 years old. And then PNG, of course, is an accredited dealer organization. And in Europe, you have the IAPN, and these dealers are held to a standard.
You have the IAPN, and then every nation has its own dealers association. You have one in Spain, you have one in France, you have one in Austria and Switzerland. In Germany, you have 2 dealers associations, and they have a very strict code of ethics. And they also have a very strict policy who is allowed to enter the association. They have a vetting service, which needs, you need to have 2 or 3 sponsors who guarantee that you are good, that you, I remember those days when representatives of the associations were coming in order to check your office, whether your library was big enough and whether you had all the material you needed. And now we are coming back to counterfeits, to detect counterfeits, whether you have a microscope, whether you have a really good scales, whether you have, today would be all these checks and balances about gold and so on. They were checking your office, and they were checking with your office whether you could be a worthy member of the association they formed.
So you're telling me they would do a surprise audit of a coin dealer, just pop in on a Tuesday? It reminds me, I'm a tennis fan, so it reminds me of the WTA or something, spot checking these poor players, at any given time, like in the middle of dinner. Okay, you have to do a drug test. The coin dealer had to pass an authenticity test. Listen, I can tell you that has never happened in the United States. We don't have that level of oversight. But do your homework as a customer, as a collector. We cannot emphasize this enough. And every conversation is be more careful than anything with your money. Don't don't be don't be cheap, for God's sake. Don't buy coins that are too, if you, the less you know, the more you're going to have to pay in the beginning, and
Absolutely.
deal with a very reputable dealer who's earned the right to charge a little more for his or her expertise in this hobby. And you will do fine, because all the dealers that I am friendly with, that I've really had respect for over the last 4 or 5 decades, and say, you know, boy, that person only sold really nice coins. Somebody you might know well, Tony Terranova here in the United States, who's a specialist in New York City, also metals and tokens and colonial material. He is not cheap. My friend Tony is not, no one is going to accuse him of being inexpensive, but he sells amazing material, and enjoy it. And then, but don't come into this hobby if you're a Bitcoin freak and you just want to make money. You think you're going to do better than these experts. You're not going to. But so stay careful, pay a little extra, enjoy what you have, and then you have the comfort of knowing, hey, if you go to John Kralovich and you say, I bought all these coins from Tony Terranova, John is going to say, that'll be in the next Stacks auction tomorrow. That is a good collection. I can tell you all, I don't even have to look at the list, and I know you built a good collection if you bought nice coins from Tony. That's all I'm saying. It's just, there are these people, and there's many of them, and Ursula knows who they are in Europe. Kunker certainly leads the pack of European auction companies, and that's why I'm sure they got that consignment. But they're not the only one, and you can do business with them.
There are a lot of good auction houses in Europe. We can mention really a lot of good auction houses in Switzerland. It's Numismatica, Ars Classica, it's Numismatica Genevensis. When you have a collection that was bought at Numismatica Genevensis, I know it will be always MS 63 to 65. You don't even need to have the coins graded. You know simply when it comes from.
Right.
And there are plenty of good auction houses.
Sure, and I guess they're all probably IAPN members, right? Let's just start with that.
IAPN
or
members.
Mostly.
Also, local ones that don't like to speak English so much, so they are in the German associations. But what I want to stress is that in Europe there is many collectors have the policy that they are acting through one dealer. So a dealer wants to keep his client, which means he will really take care of what this client is buying, because he knows after 10, 20, or 30 years, his sons will sell the collection of the client he was building up while he was in business. It's a very personal thing of relations.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little richer to say in the European continent, these relationships. I feel it's one of the things that really draws me about Europe in general, is that it's a little different, right? I mean, we always, like Pulp Fiction, we always say it's the same, but a little different. The relationships are richer in Europe. And I think the loyalty factor to your coin dealer is probably a little stronger in the United States. You might get traded out, but I can say that almost, again, all these kinds of dealers I'm talking about, whether it's Tony or other people, they have very loyal customer bases. Over time, the longer you collect, the longer you're really committed to the hobby, but you're busy with your professional life. I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a business owner. I don't have time to be smarter than Tony Terranova. I trust Tony to take care of it. And I'll say one more thing: if you're spending a lot of money at auctions and you become known that there's a person buying, a certain kind of metal or collection, you don't want to compete against yourself. So you're better off also working with a dealer who says, I have this client, and it can be confident that you're not going to shop him or her. So what happens is you don't want two dealers competing for coins on your want list. I've seen that happen so many times, right? Where the customer thinks he's being very savvy. Oh, I'm going to make Ursula work against, Ulrich and blah, blah, blah. And then you're both going to a Syncona auction and bidding on the same coin, thinking that you're going to, be able to sell it to me. So you don't want to make that mistake either. So loyalty is something that you should make your dealer earn. but you should work towards that relationship.
Yes,
And you,
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's one of the most rewarding things when you have a good relationship between a dealer and a collector. And I can give you another example. When you are known to bid very high on the coins you want to have because you are missing them, then it might be sometimes something you will overpay at auction because somebody is bidding against you just to bring up the price. And in that direction, it's often very useful when you have a dealer act for you so people don't know that you are interested in this very coin. It can be
right.
much, much cheaper acting through a dealer.
Absolutely. I mean, right. I'm laughing a little because we digressed from this conversation about forgeries
Completely.
back to the most important conversation that we can ever have, I think, which is to this audience to say how important it is to build these relationships because the fakes and the forgeries, part of it is protected when you do this. So, but absolutely, every part of this business is very treacherous for the collector and for the dealer. So when your dealer is also making something of a profit, you have to understand that the risk that we all felt buying and selling and keeping inventory, worrying about all these factors is what you're paying for in this expertise. But I can't stress it, and I'll stop now. But let's just switch back to forgeries where we're running a little limited on time. But I think we've already kind of touched on some of the important pieces, which is that the fakes, there's multiple kinds of fakes, and some of them are so good that even an expert can't tell, maybe even without a metal detecting machine like a gamma machine that can shoot radiation through to see if the content is proper, to see if the weight is proper. There's all kinds of detection, but suffice to say that the collectors can't tell. A collector really.
Yes, and at that point, I might tell you a little bit about the system IAPN has built up in cooperation with a lot of national coin associations, because it's very difficult to detect fakes when you're not in the very field of the where the fakes are coming from. What I mean is when you have a Norwegian coin and it's a good fake, you have to know not coins but Norwegian coins in order to detect it. You have to have seen a lot of coins from the same type. So in Europe, you have these associations who have specialists for all kinds of coins. I remember when it's half a life ago, I was working as the secretary for the anti-forgery committee of the IAPN. And I had a list of experts whenever coin dealers were disagreeing about the authenticity of a coin. And so there is a committee in IAPN that is talking about these things that are under question, and they are discussing the methods they will apply to find out whether this very coin is genuine or not. And it goes far beyond just having the good scales, the microscope, the electron microscope, and whatever. There is even a fancy laboratory in France, in Orléans, that is doing all the examinations in order to find out about these coins, because a lot of these coins are very dangerous fakes that were made by material that is reused. So you buy a cheap coin of the very period, and then you need take a new coin in a new die in order to restrike the material. So in order to find out whether this is really struck in antiquity or in modern times, there are methods at this laboratory in Orléans to find out when the strike was done. So it's really sophisticated.
what is your level of confidence that if the IAPN lab declares this to be authentic, w- does the marketplace say that's 100? We feel if we give 100% confidence to that lab, is that what we're talking about here? I mean, is there any level of still of concern at that point?
I think when you have an IPN expertise and they are doing expertises, then
Mhm.
it's really it's an agreement that this coin is genuine. I will never say that you have 100% certainty, because there might be things we still don't know today, but you have a quite good chance that it's authentic, and you have the backing up from the IAPN
Right.
dealer who sold it, that he will take it back for the same price when at a certain point there is new evidence that declares it's not authentic. Because I
Right.
think
So,
that's a very important thing. Um,
well, it's everything. It's everything to the collectible community to have confidence in the material being sold. When that bottom drops out, if somebody spends $1 million for some incredible rarity and it's the whole community declared it to be authentic and then determined later that it wasn't, now you have uncertainty, and we see this in the art world quite often, or at least far more often. And I was sort of getting at that, like the fact that a Picasso isn't a Picasso or a Van Gogh isn't a Van Gogh until the right authorities have declared so. Jackson Pollock. There's always a lawsuit or 10 about my painting is a Jackson Pollock, and if it's either worth $10 or it's worth 40 million. Like and please and what's happened, and this is one reason why I would never personally put a lot of money in art, is because I'm talking about the $1 million art, that if it doesn't have provenance, no, I would say these museums are now demurring from even getting involved. They will not declare a new Picasso discovery as a Picasso because of the lawsuits that everyone's suing each other. You said it's not real. Now they won't even weigh in. They won't even say it because they'll get sued by the person who thinks it's a $40 million painting. And I think that's tragic for the collectible hobby. And it's one of those things that I always say is so great about numismatics, is that we have confidence in the material we sell. And that's, again, you have to do business with an honorable dealer or auction company, and you can't cut corners. You cut corners, you will pay dearly and quickly. But it's a great hobby because of the store of wealth and the confidence in it. So,
yes.
I
Why?
think that's very interesting.
Yes, I think it's the system that has been put up and that is working. And
Mhm.
this is very helpful for the collector, because he knows he's not alone with his problem. Especially when you're going into art, you will always find that in the end you are rather alone, and you are the person at loss if you bought it at a certain point. And that's differently with coins, because that was already set up in the 1950s, that dealers got together and said, okay, when we want to sell expensive coins, we need to give the guarantees. So I'm stressing the same statement you made. And what I always found is that those honest dealers are very well working together in order to fight against counterfeits. It's not this mentality, hey, you are my competition, I won't help you. But I've seen it so often at coin shows that somebody gets an offer of a certain coin and he does not know the field. And he takes the coin, he's going to another dealer who is a specialist in that, and he shows him the coin and says, look at this, I just got it offered. What do you think about the coin? And he will give him an honest opinion. And I think that's really something that does not exist anywhere else in the world. There's working together in order to avoid counterfeits on the market.
Well, I think that's excellent observation. And I think it's still true here in the United States that we do that as well. We do that out of necessity. We dealers would always do that out of necessity because not everybody is always 1,000% confident, but what has diminished the need for it, of course, is the third party grading and the confidence. You don't really need to walk your coin to three other dealers and say, is my 1792 halftime in a PCGS XF40 holder, is that really authentic? So if that's not a concern for you, then what you're really doing is saying you don't need that the collegiality of going to Tony or JK and asking for their secondary opinion. But I promise you they will. I promise you that paper money guys, of which they're almost always asking each other, whether they agree with the grade or things like that. It's a very friendly hobby that we have here on the side of the water where, people really do respect each other. We all, we get together, go to dinner at the end of the day and believe in the same things. Those of us who have the same heart, right? I mean, that and the same business style. So that's, and we should probably wrap up a little bit here, but I want to end by saying also that a lot of these dealers that we're referring to, they're not going to be the people that Google very well. You're not going to find them on the internet. You're going to find them in the back of the auction room at a major auction with their hand in the air representing other clients. And so if you're really interested in learning about this high level world of numismatics, go to the Kunker auction that's coming up. That's obviously going to draw some very knowledgeable people, and watch who's playing in this auction. Look, you can tell by watching the room who knows what they're doing and who's been there a long time.
And I also want to stress that in Europe, there are still many auctions. You will have an auction dinner in the evening, and you will have the chance to meet really interesting people who really know what they are doing. And that's, for me, one of the parts I really like with auction sales. And I like more in Europe than in the States, because you have these old-fashioned coming together in the evening, talking to each other, celebrating the auction sale. And that's worth a trip to see that once.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's, often, heritage auctions or stacks will have an intermission in the middle of the sale. I mean, now most auctions are done online on the internet mostly, so there's not enough people anymore. Europe still has the people coming to the sales more than the United States auctions. That's you're absolutely correct. I had made some of my best friends of the savviest dealers in the business going to stacks in the 1990s and early 2000s and chatting with these guys in the intermission, and they would say, who are you? Who is this young guy? And I would talk to them, and I became friends, and I asked the right questions. I didn't act like I knew more than them, and it was a great way to meet people. So you're absolutely right. It's also a dying art because, like, as we all know, the live auction business is becoming more theatrical online, and that's good for the hobby. We're getting customers from all over the world. You don't have to fly to Osnabrück to see this auction, but you won't be able. But if you do go to Osnabrück, you better stay for the cocktail party after, because that's the money point.
Fun.
That's the money spot. So, look, Ursula, thanks for coming on again. And it just, it's obvious we could always keep talking. And I love that the feedback has generally been, has always been really good. People love, hearing what you have to say. You have forgotten more than I will ever know about numismatics specifically. I'm not even being gratuitous with that. I mean, you really have so much of an interesting and historic knowledge of coins, and I really have always just been a trader and someone who appreciates that people like you will like something. So so I figured, okay, I'll buy it because Ursula will have a customer for that. That was where I came from. So we have a yin and a yang. You can always educate me on history. And I'll maybe educate you on trading. I don't know, but thanks for coming, and we will. I mean, I'm surely we'll do this again very, very soon. So thanks again. Please like and comment below.
The next time with the Imperial Collection of William I. So it will be very soon.
Well, okay, so you'll have to get Ulrich online for that, and I look forward. That'll be fantastic. So yeah, have a great day, and hope everything goes well.
Same to you. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to more comments. It's always fun to answer them.
Thank you for coming on and responding. So if you have a question or comment for Ursula, just put it down here and we'll answer. So take care.
Okay.